So now that I have my data within Excel designated in table format, and I've interpreted some of the variables, we can start to do some very simple but very powerful analyses. So as long as I've clicked somewhere within the table, if I go to the insert menu and ask to insert a pivot table, it will guess that I want to work with my Stats 19 accidents table. I could select a different table by table name if I wanted. I can choose where I want to put the pivot table, and again I'll take the default and put it in a new worksheet, and I press OK, and it will start a new worksheet within my workbook, and it will give me the pivot table editor to work with. So one of the variables we created was an accident severity description, so I think I might put that in the columns. Now, one thing we could do is we could find out how well Excel managed to work interpreting date. So I'll put date on the rows, and it has indeed interpreted it, and it tries to give us a little bit of help here. So it kind of guesses there's a whole year's data. That would make a big table, so it's guessed that it's going to break it down by month. We can manipulate that and expand it, have more or less granularity as we want, but it's made a guess for us. And again, it's done that because it imported some data, and it interpreted it as data. And then the last thing we want to do is to put something in the values box. Now I'm just going to drag a text field in. The reason I'm dragging a text field in is because all Excel can do with that is count it, and I think that's the least misleading thing that we can do here. So we have our pivot table that appears to show us with no other context that the number of casualties was high in January. It then drops over the early part of the year, and in terms of crashes involving a fatal collision, it then picks up again in July. And of course, if you remember, in 2020 these numbers are going low when we had the lockdown, and there would have been a lot less traffic on the road. So maybe that's part of the story. And one of the questions now, one of the go away and think questions, is what else do we need to make sense out of this kind of context? But there we have some information on crashes by severity by month, and I'll leave that pivot table there. Beautiful thing about pivot table, we can change what we're working with. We can drag things out, we can drag things in. I could apply filters. I could look at it I could drag police force down, look at it one police force at a time. I won't do that yet because we didn't add the lookup for the police forces, so we only have them as numbers. But it's a powerful tool. So let's just look at one other. The one other variable we created an interpretation for was road type. So again, let's do insert and pivot table, and again let's put that on a new worksheet. And if we go down, we have, let's put accident severity description along the columns again. Let's put road type description on the rows, and it just happens to be convenient because I know it's text. Let's drag accident index into the values box, because all it can do with this is count. If this was a number, it offers us to sum them, to take the average of them, and so on and so on. But let's just put a text value in there to force a count. And if we have a look at this, we can see, for example, that there were 1,000 fatalities. Over 1,000 of the fatalities were on single carriageways. And again, here's the go away and think question. What other information do we need in order to put that into context? Is that enough to tell a story on its own, or do we really need a little bit more information than that in terms of understanding and interpreting these data? But the first thing is the technical exercise. Again, we're doing very powerful work very simply with Excel pivot tables. We can give the pivot table a more informative name, so this could be collision severity by road type. And now I have a pivot table that can be referred to elsewhere in the Excel workbook. And again, I'm going to give the tab the same name, collision severity by road type. And there's a lot you can do with very little prompting here. We can turn the information into a chart. We could change the data source if we added another worksheet with data from 2021. So it is really powerful feature, and it builds slightly on the insert table that we were demonstrating before, but the real value of the insert table will be demonstrated in a subsequent session.